Thank you for joining us today. I got both these now. We're going to get right into it. Are there any board members that are not sitting up here at the table?
I know Mr. Hamilton talked to me in the parking lot. He's running a few minutes late. He'll be here in just a minute.
Lynn Stanford's not going to be able to make it today.
Okay. We've got Party Bill here and the city managers. Let me go and see up at the table.
Got Marshall.
Scott. Okay. I think that's it.
Josh Scoletti will be absent today. He sits in for.
Okay. Okay, yeah, I don't see Josh either, so. All right. So we do have a slight agenda change. Part C, child care, we're going to put off until August. So we have two items. What we're going to do, if there's time after Joe presents with, he's going to give, if there's time, I will give an update to Jackson County's sales tax reference. I don't have to touch it? Okay, fine. I keep touching for the green light.
Okay, all right, I got it. So I'll fill in as needed if we have time. So without saying anything further, let's go to Grant McClure, who is the project manager for the Coastal Conservation League, and he's going to talk about the plastic bag ordinance and update. Grant, welcome. Yeah, why not, so everybody could see you.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Grant McClure and I work for the Coastal Conservation League. Just a little bit about myself before we get started. I grew up in Charleston. My family is actually from Hampton County originally. I went to Wofford College where I studied environmental studies and English. I also got a master's degree from Clemson in wildlife and fisheries resources. I've been working at the Coastal Conservation League for about 2 years now. And if you're not familiar with our organization, we are a 501c3 nonprofit that really focuses in on environmental advocacy. So we work on all kinds of issues from land use and rezoning issues to more of what we call our land, water, wildlife issues. Things like the plastic bag ordinances that we're going to be talking about today. Also, before we get started, I'm going to be talking about the Beaufort County plastic bag ordinance specifically, which was adopted in 2017, but did want to acknowledge that Jasper County and Hardeeville do not have any kind of regulation on plastic bags, and so would welcome the opportunity to work with the municipalities and the county over in Jasper on some of these issues. Okay, some of y'all may remember this slide. This was actually included in a presentation by Ricky Parker, who had worked at the Conservation League whenever the first single-use plastic bag ban went into effect. So I just thought it would be helpful to address the elephant in the room. What I'm trying to say is that we've got a problem, and it's persisted even after some of the successes of 2017 and 2018. Okay, so a little bit of history here in Beaufort County. Initially, in 2017, Beaufort County started having workshops across the county, engaging with different communities to try to get a sense of what stakeholders had in mind, if they thought this was a good idea or not. And what they found was that there was strong support in the communities for banning those plastic bags that you might get at your grocery store. And so the county kind of got all the municipalities together, and the municipalities worked on adopting language that was uniform across Beaufort County. And so Hilton Head, Bluffton, City of Beaufort, all adopted these changes. And so also town of Port Royal adopted these changes. And I don't want to undersell like what a great accomplishment that was, because it was huge. At the time there was plastic industry lobbyists and, big box stores with a lot of high-powered, legal teams on their side. And the municipalities and the county were successful in working together to get these protections adopted, which was a huge, huge accomplishment, and don't want to undersell that. Unfortunately, as a byproduct, we kind of started seeing these thicker plastic bags pop up in our communities. And we know now that those thicker bags can also pose problems. So where are we now? Well, back in May, the Keep Beaufort County Beautiful Board proposed some language that would close that loophole for the thicker plastic bags and also include some restrictions on a couple of other items, including those foam to-go boxes and the carry-out cutlery like plastic forks and knives. Those changes were approved by the Community Services and Land Use Committee. And that language is kind of still in the works. So why should we regulate plastics, right? There's a lot of different reasons, but a good reason is that we know that our wildlife are interacting with these plastics. So 1,300 species that reside in the ocean have been found to ingest plastics. There's also 300 more of those that are, terrestrial, things like birds that are also interacting with these materials. We know now that microplastics are increasingly problematic, both for the health of our food chains and for our own personal health. And so, in addition, when we're talking about plastic, it's ugly. Folks that are visiting our communities from out of town, they don't want to see this stuff and when they're visiting our beaches or our scenic corridors, like, let's say, Sheldon Church Road or Highway 21 heading out to Hunting Island. They want to see, the pristine marsh vistas, not trash blighting our communities. Also know that forestry is one of the biggest and oldest industries in South Carolina. We want to, by making a paradigm shift towards paper, we're supporting that practice, allowing folks to hold on to their properties and create a revenue stream. And also, there are businesses in South Carolina that are already making some of these more sustainable products, and so we can support those local businesses. And I've got a list of all those manufacturers. I'd be happy to provide that to folks. It's also not that hard. So there's businesses in Beaufort County that are already using paper bags. I shop at Publix. They've got a great paper bag with surprisingly durable handles. You can also get paper from Food Lion and Whole Foods. And so, some of these big box stores are willing to use paper, and I believe will use paper if they're required to. I mentioned earlier we want our beaches to be clean. We also want our landfills to have a longer operating life. And so if we can reduce some of the plastic that ends up into those landfills, we can have a little bit more space. Additionally, one thing to kind of keep in mind that's kind of interesting from a stormwater perspective is that these plastic bags can actually get down stormwater drains, and the thicker bags, can clog those drains worse than maybe a thin bag could, and so that's another issue. And also, just people spend time collecting this material, and that has a cost, and it's just simply the right thing to do. We should be stewards of the environment. And this is one way that we can take steps towards being better stewards. So, why should we do this now? Municipalities across coastal South Carolina are taking this step, and in some ways we're behind the times, and so it's time for us to catch up to speed. And we also know that, for example, I went to Cava over by the Tanger Outlets the other night, and they had a paper bowl and I think maybe bamboo cutlery. And I truly believe that some of the businesses are already using some of the more sustainable options, especially your smaller businesses. And we want to support those businesses. And so by making those larger industries that can afford to, or larger businesses that can afford to make the switch, make that switch, we're supporting the smaller businesses. And I believe that actually folks will flock to those places that are doing the right thing, and that can actually support their business. So a little bit of just data that's been collected over the past couple of years. In 2023, the South Carolina Aquarium found 875 plastic bags in the Charleston Harbor. Many of those were the thicker plastic bags. So these are ending up in our waterways. They've also found a huge increase in the number of bags, of those thick bags, since the first ordinance was passed, which essentially shows that the thick plastic bags weren't really an issue or something that folks were thinking about back when this initial wave of bans was passed, but they've now become more and more prolific. So this map gives you an idea of what some of the different states are doing. Actually, in South Carolina, the Conservation League was successful at the State House in blocking what would have been a ban on plastic bag bans. And there was a number of partners working on that issue. But here in South Carolina, we still have home rule. So municipalities and the counties can adopt their own sets of regulations on these items. All the states in red have state preemption. But you can see on the East Coast and the West Coast, it's pretty common to regulate these items. So this just gives you a snapshot of what's out there right now. This was one cleanup that was done in June of 2024 in Coligny Beach. The Sea Turtle Auxiliary Group was out there for, I think, about an hour. They found 46 pounds of trash, lots of cigarette butts, and also 48 straws. That's kind of an alarming number of straws. So these items are out there in our communities. I mentioned earlier that some municipalities have already taken the step towards closing the loophole for the thick plastic bags and also regulating carry-out cutlery and foam to-go boxes. The City of Charleston, Town of Mount Pleasant, Town of James Island, and Folly Beach have all recently updated their ordinances within the past 6 months. This graph kind of gives you a good sense of who's regulating what. I wish it was a little bit more local to Beaufort County, but nonetheless, you can still see which items are being regulated and where. One thing that's interesting, you'll notice under disposable cutlery, several of the municipalities have opted to have it available on request. And so if you order takeout, instead of just having that plastic silverware thrown in there automatically, it's only available if you ask for it. And this can actually save businesses money, right? So they're not just giving folks products that are going to end up in their junk drawer. I know that often I'll order takeout and end up using my own silverware at home. So just an option to not all-out ban those items, but having them available upon request. You might also consider that for straws if that's kind of a sticking point. And you'll notice that balloons is another item. I was able to get some data from the South Carolina Aquarium. There are several volunteers that are picking up trash in Beaufort County and logging it in their litter journal. And one of the most prolific items that they're finding, and bear in mind they're mostly on beaches, is balloons. We absolutely have a balloon problem in this county, and you might consider regulating balloons. Folly Beach does it, and as does the Isle of Palms. And actually, the state of Florida, the entire state just passed a ban on releasing balloons, more than 10 balloons at the same time. Personally, I think 9 is still too many balloons to be released, but just goes to show that if the entire state of Florida is taking steps to try to keep some of these items out of our marshes and out of our environment, then we can take similar action up here in South Carolina. So what's needed now, and where do we go from here? Well, I think the first step is to figure out which items we want to ban and which items we want to maybe allow on request. If we want to break this all in, if we we want to do this all at once in one fell swoop, or if we want to kind of take some of these items each at a time. And so I think communicating with local businesses is absolutely key. I've already started reaching out to, I reached out to the Beaufort Area Hospitality Association, and I've met with Surge Group. And so just having some of those conversations is important. I've heard some of their concerns. And I want to acknowledge that there is a cost to making the shift, but there's also a cost to doing nothing. And so while we understand there may be some costs associated, we've got to start making some changes if we want to protect our resources and protect our communities from some of these items that we know can be harmful. I mentioned back in 2018, when this first set of bans went into place, there was quite a bit of coordination with the municipalities. And so this is, in many ways, kind of the perfect forum to have everybody here together today to start having some of these conversations. But my understanding is that the municipalities found language that they agreed on, and then they went forward with, putting that initial ban into place. Also, just having conversations with your friends and family, and if there are champions in your communities that you think could really get excited about this issue or have creative ideas about this issue, I think reaching out to them is important early. So before I wrap up here, just a few questions for consideration. We talked earlier about maybe having some items available upon request, and the city of Charleston has done this. They've also got a hardship exemption where you can get an extension for a year if you can prove that this would impact your business substantially to the point where you could no longer continue operating or turning a profit. And so having that kind of program in place might be an option to provide a little bit of grace for businesses as we're making this transition. You might also consider having a lag between the passing of any new ordinance and enforcement. And so that would allow folks to use up some of their existing supply. Let's say if they've got a bunch of, if you want to ban clamshells, like your foam to-go boxes, that would allow them to kind of use up their supply so they're not stuck with a bunch of inventory. And also just thinking about who's going to enforce this. I think citizen enforcement is absolutely key on this. Charleston has hired a full-time, the city has hired a full-time staff to kind of handle some of these challenges, but enforcement is also something to start thinking about. And just lastly, I did want to mention that there's a lot of conservation partners. We're all really excited about working on these types of issues, and so this is something that folks care deeply about. Beaufort County and its neighbors, I think, have a reputation for being very progressive when it comes to protecting our environment. We had the Rural and Critical Lands Program. We were the first county, Beaufort County was the first county to tax themselves for conservation purposes. And so this is very much a part of the legacy of this county, and there are many partners to help with this type of work. And finally, just wanted to extend the invitation to a litter sweep coming up on Friday. Unfortunately, I'll be out of town for this, but my coworker Jesse will be there, and we're working with the Port Royal Sound Foundation on this event. And this will, just provide a snapshot of some of the items that are out there, but we'll be meeting at the Beaufort County building and kind of exploring the marsh around Battery Creek there at the headwaters to pick up some trash. And we're going to be sorting that plastic and hopefully logging it in the, in the litter journal so that we've got some of that data available. And it does just provide a small piece of the story, but at least gives us a sense of what's out there now. That's all I've got. I'm happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Grant. I'll open it up for questions. I just want to, before I do, make one observation. I agree that we need to get plastics away from our environment, but it seems that these are treating the symptoms but not not the root cause, and that's the people who litter. And that seems to be the real problem, right from educating our young people that this is not an acceptable behavior, because the amount of litter that we pick up in Hardeeville and Jasper County is just, whether it's plastic or anything else, is just an atrocity. So this is great, but let's not ignore the root cause of it, and that's the people who litter.
Yeah, and I would say yes and, right? We need to do the education, and we also need to start making some cultural changes and stopping some of this stuff at the source, right? And so that's really what the purpose of this ordinance is to get at the source of the problem.
Great, thank you. I'd like to open it up to the board first, and then we'll go to the public. Does anyone from the board have any questions, comments for Grant?
Well, I will, litter and cleanup is a big part of our budget. And we have people that show up to our beaches and have no care or concern as to what they leave behind. And it is an educational piece that is important, and it's also an enforcement piece that needs to be addressed. And what I would like to see on Hilton Head is that if you leave your trash on the beach, you're stuck with a $1,000 fine. And it is, not only are they leaving their bottles and cans and trash, but their umbrellas, their chairs, their styrofoam boogie boards. I'd like to see those banned, because that creates a lot of opportunity for that to get into the water. It has become almost critical. We've had to hire a separate company now. We broke it away from beach services. We've got a recycling company that comes in every day. They picked up, I think it was 1.5 tons of trash after July 4th. So this is a real issue that we face on Hilton Head, and I know that the rest of the area faces. And I'd like to see a real unified effort to figure out a way to address it. We are known for our environmentally respected areas and how we take care of it, but we don't have people coming to the area that also have the same feeling. So how we address it on the shores of our waterways, of our beaches, through our drainage systems, I think we have got to take a stance within the LOWCOUNTRY that says we're not going to put up with this. And Larry, it kind of goes back to something you had mentioned a while ago about the trash haulers, and how do we make certain that they're not part of the problem. I'm glad to see that you're bringing this forward. I'd like to know, what you're doing, working with other municipalities. We've got TJ Jett for our environmental sustainability. We're working hard on sustainability, but what are you doing, going out, reaching out to the others, and helping provide solutions to some of these issues?
Yeah, happy to work with TJ on this, and I've met him a couple times now, so I'd be happy to reach out.
Thanks, Alan. If I could just reiterate, our commercial haulers, and I'm not speaking of what someone called me and told me about, I'm speaking of what I see with my own eyes, and when I see something, I won't give up on it. I know it to be a fact. We have to do something to put more regulation or more responsibility on the commercial haulers, as far as this, it's the plastic, it's the styrofoam, it's everything. We have to have them to pick up our trash, whether it's from our restaurant or wherever. And I know for a fact that a huge part of what we're seeing on our roadways is definitely coming from commercial haulers. Just 3 weeks or so ago, I had a call from a friend, said, come look at this. So I went, and sure enough, there were, I don't even know how many bags, maybe 5 or 6, 7 bags of pharmaceutical trash from a doctor's office, dentist office, or whatever. And then the white foam, like packaging foam. just littered the parkway, you know, for several hundred yards. So anyway, our police department did get on that and made them come and clean it up and all that. So everything is bad for the environment, but especially when it's not important. You know, we as a government, we need to enforce our ordinances and our regulations. And, you know, I'm all about not harming anyone's business, but then again, we have to. We owe it to the environment and to the generations to come to protect what we have now. So that's a major step that I think we need to take action on as a group.
I appreciate that. I was out on Bay Point over July 4th and actually found an IV bag that had washed up to shore, which probably that was the source. And, you know, I live in Beaufort, but I'm often coming on 170, and I'll always see those trash trucks that it seems like there's no cover on the top and stuff is just flying out. So it's absolutely a problem. And, you know, the Port Royal Sound is such an iconic watershed, and so to have stuff going right there, you know, on the bridge is just a shame. So.
And if I could add, if you notice, our bridges, a lot of times there's more trash on them than anywhere else. And, you know, it's common sense if you drive a pickup truck or any other open vehicle, whatever's in the back when you go across the bridges, you know, the wind's going to suck it up and spread it. And, you know, I mean, I came across Hilton Head Bridge just yesterday maybe, or day before, or whatever. And there was a pickup truck full of trash on the bridges. You know what I mean? It didn't all come from one trash truck, but it was accumulated there, and once it gets on the bridge, you can't get any closer to the water than that.
You know, and that brings up a great question, and maybe it's a question for the county. What is being done on the bridges to make certain that they're clean? I mean, what is the attempt with DOT and the county and the municipalities to address these trashy bridges?
Well, the county, I'll just address part of that. The county on 170 has a crew. There are county employees that do 170 because that's also the route to Snake Road and the landfill, because there's always litter on 170. And that includes two bridges, but I'm not sure about the Hilton Head Bridge.
I think we need to look at all of them. And you know, we've had conversations about buying our own street sweeper to go out at night to clean everything up. We know that the Hilton Head Bridge is just a Hilton Head Bridge over Mackey's Creek, over federal waterways, over county property. So I think that's something that we would like to understand as to what else can be done. Because you're right, Larry, there's a tremendous amount of trash, and when we have, you know, 17,000 cars coming over in the morning, it creates a heck of a lot more trash. And I look at the county to this because, yes, it's employees coming to Hilton Head, it's day trippers coming to Hilton Head, but it's also people that live in unincorporated Beaufort County and other areas as well. I'm not just going to single out Beaufort County, but it needs to be a regional attempt.
All right. Well, thank y'all very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Before closing you off, give the public the opportunity to ask any questions. Anyone from the public like to weigh in?
Mayor, I have an observation, but that's not unusual. You know, we spoke at this group 2 or 3 years ago. We were trying to address trash. We did it in Hardyville, I believe, it was one of our meetings, and we were trying to figure out how to navigate that, and I don't think we ever have. I feel like, you know, it's not just education on doing away with plastics, but again, I think we have to have a stronger response overall to trash throughout the county. It's prevalent, and it just doesn't go away. I called Mayor Toomer during the Heritage, for example, and I had never seen anything like it in my life. There was absolutely, over near Belfair area, it was just unbelievable. It was the most trash, papers just scattered for a good mile everywhere I'd ever seen before. So I called him to see if he could reach out to the county or somebody to help us, navigate that during the heritage period. So again, I think we have to just tackle it from two prongs, figure out how to do it. And my last question, my only question would be, I think this is worthy of this discussion. Are we also talking to our friends in Jasper County as well?
Well, certainly this is a regional organization here, and this is a regional problem. Oh, it's a national problem, but from a regional standpoint, it should include both counties, and all the municipalities, I think, have. So if I would suggest to this board, I think there's probably a multi-step need here, and this perhaps as an agenda item in and of itself in the future, litter as an agenda item.
Yeah, and I would take it one step further and incorporate recycling and availability of recycling, because that's where a lot of the problem exists. Not having it set up in a way that it makes it convenient. So.
Okay, thank you. Grant, it was good timing. I think we have an audience who's concerned, and I'll make sure this litter and recycling gets on a future agenda. So thank you.
Great, appreciate it.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes.
Can I speak for a second?
Sure.
My name is Chris Campbell. I'm a lifelong member of Beaufort County. I'm head of Beaufort County Beautiful. I'm on the board of Palmetto Pride. Our whole thing now is litter. We're already a beautiful county, so we don't have to worry about the beautification part of it, but we worry about litter. And our efforts are mainly litter, and then we initiated the ban on the plastics, because that's what we do when we pick up litter. We pick up plastics. Let's face it. It's about money. I think that everybody ought to look at the accommodation tax that we pay on these islands where we invite people to come, which is a good thing, but they're going to come anyway. There were 150 cars at Crazy Crab last night driving off the island. It's just nuts. I mean, there's a lot of people coming here. But anything we could do together as a group to fight the plastics and fight the litter, I think in the long run, we would be a lot proud of ourselves when it's all said and done. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, and I believe we have a lot of agreement with you. So next we have Joe Passman, who's going to give us an update on the transportation tax, among other things. Joe, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to talk about some regional projects right now and how they affect all of us. In May of this year, May 20th through the 22nd, a group of individuals representing 7 counties in southern South Carolina went to Washington, D.C. to talk about some specific projects, regional transformational projects. We met with key federal legislators to say we need money, we need resources, we represent a lot of people that want a lot of things. They listened very carefully. When we came home, we again met with the governor of South Carolina. We went over several of the projects, and specifically, and all of this will be on our website, so I'm not going to go through every single page of this. Specifically, 2 projects are going to be adopted by the state of South Carolina that has a regional effect. One is workforce training. We know that several of our surrounding counties are going to have large manufacturing facilities built in their county. They need workforce. They need trained workforce. There is going to be an investment by the state of South Carolina and the federal government to have that training done. So that's a big success. The second one is the Savannah River site. It is a large complex that the Southern Carolina Alliance is taking a step forward with the blessing of the state of South Carolina to have a solar project put there, which will be good for the environment, begins the development of that particular project. So those are two very successful ones. When we were there as well, we talked about some really local projects. The first one that we talked about, and if we could go to get rid of that. Okay, this one. Go back one. This one. Water and sewer in this region is a real concern. Quality of water, sewer. So we went and we talked about specific projects. This is the summary that you can read on your own, but we're going to begin to do something about this. We have one of our state senators, Margie Bright Matthews, who represents Jasper County, working closely with us on several of these projects. There are 4 of them. Alljoy is one of the most critical. It is on the May River. The May River is being polluted because many of the properties, there's over 200 properties there, have failing septic systems that are poisoning the water. So that is a top project that is going to be done first. But there are 3 others, Shell Point, Levy, and Old Bailey. Those 4 projects will have a tremendous impact on our environment. We don't have the money for that yet, but we do have people who are well aware and are researching that right now. Next, we have the bridge project. I'll get into the whole referendum momentarily, but if you'll go to the next one. This was sent to our federal legislators with a, I think, will you go to the next one, it'll show you what we want to do there. Won't do that? Okay. This is Pinckney Island. This is where the bridge is going to cross. It is the federal wildlife preserve that's there. What we're doing is we're working in conjunction with Federal Wildlife Preserve to redo this area. Once the bridge is there, we now have the opportunity to do some different things. We've given them some options. They are really excited about this. We're now working with the federal government. You know that takes time. But it is on the horizon that we will have boat landings. We'll have an interpretive center, a whole new way of getting to the Pinckney Island Wildlife Reserve. So those are 3 of the major things that we are doing in this area. No longer are we going to strictly talk about Beaufort and Jasper County. We're now going to have to talk about 7 counties in our region. They're growing. They're going to put a great deal of emphasis on people coming to our counties as well. We have to work with them on regional projects for the betterment of everybody. So now let me bring you up to date about our referendum. As you know, our referendum has now been set, and here is the referendum. We have decided it is going to be a 10-year, $950 million referendum. There are a lot of things, a lot of concerns about the referendum. We know those. We're now going to put out educational material regarding that. People have concerns. What did you do with the money we gave you in 2018 and why do you want more money for it? You didn't use it the first time around. Where is it? All of that material is being put together now. Will people read it? We hope so. Can we get it out to you? We hope so. Will we have it on our website? We sure will. Will people go to our website? We don't know. We're in the age of social media. So we'll find every opportunity to get this information out. Why are we going to do those things that were underfunded in 2018? Because we have to. We collected over $120 million. The referendum last time was 4 years, $120 million. We collected the $120 million before the 4 years was up. True to form, government doesn't work instantly. So before they shut off the pipeline, we collected another $15 million. So we really had $135 million. We have every single penny accounted for. Why wasn't the bridge built? Well, we could not finish doing anything as far as the design for the bridge until we had municipal consent. The referendum was in 2018. June 28th, 2024, we got municipal consent. We now can move forward with the design of the bridge. How long will that take? 2.5 years. Why? Because we deal with federal bureaucracies. It is going to cross federal property. So the next year, we're going to go from a 30% design to a 60% design. The last 40% are the most difficult because they're the most expensive. That's when you have to go to the federal agencies to get their blessing, because it crosses federal property. So you have federal laws that you have to abide by, you have to have federal permitting that you abide by, you have state permitting that you abide by, you have county permitting, and you have municipal permitting. There is land to be developed. That means some of the lands have restrictions on them. All of those have to be dealt with. They will take a year or more. So for 2 years, we won't have anything done with the project at all, the bridge project. And yet, we're going to need money to finish that. We have some, we don't have all. Ladies Island projects, we'll finish those. The pathway projects, we'll finish those. Everybody in the county will be touched by this referendum. We will lay out everything. We will tell the public where all the money is, what we've spent, what we have to spend, what we think it's going to cost. The second part will be, once the referendum passes, if it passes, what are going to be the priorities? What are we going to do first and why? That will be developed. The third part will be, what do we need to bond for and why? And so it will be a long-term educational process that we're going to go through between now and November for everybody to make up their minds whether they agree or disagree with what we are proposing. I can only educate. I cannot advocate. I'm not here to tell you you should or you shouldn't vote. I have people who will come out and say, I believe you should vote for this. I have people who will say, no, you shouldn't vote for this. That's advocating. And we're warning our council members regarding that. Whenever they speak on this, you better educate. And that's what I'm doing now. Here's what it is. Here's how it affects everybody. The ball will be in your court to do that. So now I will answer any questions you have regarding the projects that we're proposing, the regional projects that we're doing. Why are we doing regional projects? How do they affect us? Why is it that we're going beyond the Beaufort and Jasper County borders? Because it's that important. Yes, sir.
Fred, you want to talk into this?
Yes, some of the places that you want to bring sewer to did not include Pritchardville. Why and when will you add it?
That is going to be for our people from Beaufort Jasper Water. We've been working with Beaufort and Jasper Water to talk about projects right now, okay? I can tell you those projects that we are talking about right now. The Alljoy project is going to cost a little over $15 million. When you go to Shell Point, that's almost $37 million. When you go to Levy, it's $53 million. When you go to Old Bailey's, that's another $10.5 million. We're talking a lot of money. Certainly, go right ahead.
I might be able to elaborate on that. Charlie Stone, Director of Government Affairs at Jasper Water and Sewer. So presently, we have established an ad hoc we have established
Charlie, why don't you sit down?
Yeah, sit in my seat.
Mike by the door over there.
So Fred, currently we have established an ad hoc underserved committee, and we are really in the preliminary stages in terms of identification. So far, we've identified the 4 properties that Chairman Passman mentioned. Right now, our priority is to engage the communities within those 4 areas. Our desire is to work with a community that is informed and that embraces a solution. The last thing we want to do is to go into a community that doesn't necessarily want sewer extension. You know, obviously we have a comprehensive plan and some areas aren't necessarily a fit. As we get further into our process, there is potential that we may add sites to that. So if Pritchardville is a property that you think could make sense for sewer extension, we will certainly add it to our list to discuss at the ad hoc level.
Well, I heard you when you say you don't want to force it on anyone that doesn't want it, but I think we're already doing that. We're already saying if you're near the Mere River and you could cause pollution, then it's a priority that we avoid and be proactive about that. So without that ad hoc committee should be educating that community and advocating for the community to come on board with everybody else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so just to speak a little bit specifically about Alljoy, since February, myself, my Chief of Engineering, Paul Vincent at Beaufort Jasper Water, we've had numerous meetings with residents at Alljoy, and what I've seen at Alljoy has been a real groundswell from the residents. They've been the one driving the ship within the Alljoy community. They're very vocal that they want a solution to the challenges that they have. They also experience challenges with drainage down there. I know that they've been engaged with the county council, they've been engaged with stakeholder groups like Coastal Conservation, and they've been engaged with the town. And so at this point with Alljoy, it's a conversation. We're working to find a solution. We're working to identify funding mechanisms through the state, the federal level, different grant opportunities. And our action around Alljoy has been to address the community's concerns. With some of our other communities that are on the list, Levy, I've been working with one of our board members, Miss Lorraine Bond, and trying to engage that community as well. So really, with our process, it starts at the ground floor with those residents.
Understood. Thank you for your answer.
Other questions?
One other question.
Yes.
Who are the 7 counties that you said we need to partner with or be in?
That is a very good question. Okay. Beaufort, Jasper, Colleton, Hampton, Barnwell, Allendale, and I know you're going to make me think of Bamberg, I'm sorry. Very good. Those are the 7 counties in our region that are economically tied together because of the nature of where we live and who we are and what is being developed. Everything affects us.
Joe, I have a question.
Yes, Phil.
Out of the projects from the 2018 referendum,
Yes.
how many of those are shovel-ready?
There are several that are shovel-ready right now. Jared has that list. We will publish all of that list. We do know that we were behind there. One of the pieces of information that people have to know, when you put a pathway in, people think, pathway, oh, gee, that's just a little concrete or a little pavement. They don't understand, it's like building a road. There are encroachment permits, there are all kinds of permits. Everybody in this room is on this street, so everybody in this room has to sign off and maybe give up some property. It is a very lengthy process to do that. And you can't do anything till you collect the money. So in 18, we said this was great. We're going to do these 14 projects. Well, we collected the $30 million or the $10 million that we needed for the projects and discovered the $10 million wasn't enough to do them.
And are the estimates for these shovel-ready projects up to date?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Joe, if I could ask,
yes,
so I thought we collected 130 million, wasn't it?
yes.
So was that 130 million spent?
No, no.
So is that
Small amounts of money have been spent.
So is that whatever million dollars in a place where it's making money, or is it sitting in a locker in the closet?
No, it's making some money, but not nearly, some money, yes.
It's a lot of money to be sitting,
Yeah.
not making just a little bit of that is a lot of money.
Yeah. And everything goes back to the projects.
And when you're, when you're trying to sell this new referendum, some of the projects have been done, right?
Some have been done.
That's very important to show the people, in
Yep.
my opinion,
Yep,
we did accomplish this and this, because right now it's a perception of the people that I talk, or that talk to me about it, that where did the money go? That's why I just asked that question. And why didn't we do something? Even if we could only do two $10 million projects, instead of waiting another 4 years, as the cost of construction and engineering and permit, everything has been going up.
oh, yeah, yeah,
That's why we bond money,
yep,
so that we could do it at today's cost instead of waiting 5 years for us to collect the money and pay it then, and the cost of the projects go up. I mean,
Yep.
we had the same situation in Bluffton, and we've kind of changed the way we do business now, and I think it's just, it was my idea. So I never went to school to learn any of that. I just kind of learned it from being in business myself. Don't
Yeah.
wait till tomorrow what you can do today.
absolutely. And so we're going to have all of those things. And as such, Harry is now going to talk about what Jasper County is going to do with their referendum, because we're partners in this. Whatever transportation roads that we're going to do affect him. Whatever transportation roads he's going to do affects us. So, Harry, go right ahead.
I'm going to be very brief. Jasper County has done theirs. They have 2 readings done, right, Danny? And a third will be done before the end of this month. I just want to say one thing in terms of the referendums in both counties. This is a regional situation, and the referendum should be offered as such. And it's part of, okay. You see Hardyville, and this affects everybody. The population growth is going to be probably by 2030, 30,000, 31,000. That's in addition to the growth of Bluffton. As you can see, and this is important, Hardyville being 58 square miles. If you look at, I don't know how to do the pointer, but it doesn't matter. The reason this is up here these roadways affect everybody and every municipality in this region, because the workforce has to travel through these roads, the tourists have to travel through these roads, and the tourists want to get to where they want to go. So everything affects everybody in this room. And we need to understand that, because if the referendums do not pass, the question we have to all ask ourselves, how do we fix these problems? There are no other financial solutions that are put forth at this time. And the workforce that goes to Hilton Head, comes to Bluffton, comes from Beaufort, your workforce going to travel to Hilton Head and other areas of employment, particularly if you look at the south part of Hardyville, where millions of square feet of industrial space is being developed as we speak, and certainly with the addition to Exit 3. The workforce will be traveling throughout our entire region. Just the basics of this is the projects. I don't have a nice slide like Joe had, but what it's going to be, it'll be a $470 million 15-year referendum. What this slide shows is that in order to have 15%, to get to 470, we need a 15% increase in sales tax revenue each year from where it is right now. Certainly, if we only get 5%, and that's on the other end, it's only like $245 million. Again, the major arteries are I-95 being widening, Exit 3 being added, and Exit 8 being totally reconfigured. And again, all those roadways, those are things that are going to happen for sure right now, and they're going to affect the traffic flow and the ability of our workers to get back and forth. I'm not going to go into all those. Oh, by the way, that's how Exit 8 is going to be looking, and again, that's going to affect a lot of tourists for Hilton Head go through this area. These are just some of the projects. I'm not going to go into it for the sake of time. This is very important. You saw it on Joe's list. It's part of Jasper County's list. And what's important, again, for the tourists and the workers of the areas, Beaufort County has 170, and then the widening of 278 up to the county line. Jasper's ordinance has Argent Boulevard, which is a road of regional significance, and the widening of 278 from the county line to Exit 8. That's also part of this project. Another thing that, in honor of Grant, that we have in there, 20% of the collections will go to Green Belt initiatives. So if we collect the 470 million, 94 million will go to Green Belt initiatives. So that's the broad picture of Jasper County. I have suggested to Joe and a councilman from Jasper County that this be marketed as a regional need and it be marketed together. Okay, we can't advocate, but we can educate. And if we educate and we pull together, this is a regional need, I think we'll be more effective and the voters will understand what the impact is for the entire area, and not just for one little part of it, but the entire region. We have 1 minute for questioning, so. I talked right to the limit, so you wouldn't question me.
This question might be for Danny. Levy Road, is that a part of the transportation improvement project?
It's, yes, Levy's, I believe, has $10 million in there.
I live in Bluffton, and I get calls from Levy Road.
Levy Road is a big problem, and all these cost estimates were done by, Danny, correct me if I'm wrong, but they were done, there was a company that was hired and came in and did all these estimates for Jasper County, and all the projects were identified. There were another $250 million worth of projects over the 470 that the municipalities and the counties submitted as needs. But of course, we only listed 470 so we don't confuse the public. So there is a Plan B need. 470 will not solve the whole problem. And obviously, if we don't collect the 470, which is entirely possible, there will also, probably have a need 15 years from now to extend it. There is also a $150 million bonding question. That's a separate question, because to Larry's point, it's very well taken. We have to analyze, is it better to borrow at 5% than to have a 20% increase in construction costs by the time we collect the money? One other thing that I think is important, and I've also suggested to talk to Joe about this. In the Jasper County ordinance, we, the municipalities, asked for a committee that will consist of the mayors of Hardeeville and Ridgeland, the two municipalities, a representative of the county, and a representative of the school board, because our roads affect the school busing. And that this committee meet on a regular basis, and they will determine priorities. They'll keep an idea on cost estimates, and this isn't such a whether or not to bond and move on the projects right away. They will meet as regularly as needed. They will be public meetings, and the public will have a chance to weigh in on what those priorities and how this money should be spent and when. So there will be regular meetings to make sure that the public knows exactly where the money's, how it's being collected, when it's collected, and when it's going to be spent. I think that's an important selling point to the community, that they know that the money will be spent wisely and will be considered by the group as a whole. Well, since I'm up here, thank you very much. On next month's agenda, we're going to push the child care conversation, just to follow up on what this group wants to do after our presentation of last month. There obviously is a need, but rather than let it just die, the conversation die on the vine, what do we want to do if we as a region want to do anything as a follow-up? Are there any other agenda suggestions for next month? Okay, so perhaps what I'll add is, what do we want to do in terms of formulating a region-wide litter campaign? Maybe we can structure something at the next meeting. Okay? Thank you all for joining us, and enjoy the summer.